Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us for the fourth iGETIT live session. Today we're going to be doing drawings. My name is James Keller. I'm an instructional designer and certified SOLIDWORKS subject matter expert here at iGETIT, and I've covered the last three of these sessions so far, so hopefully you've been going along with us up to this point. Today we're going to take all the other stuff we've learned so far and move on to drawings with that knowledge. Some of the things to expect today is we're going to show you how to create a simple 3-view part in a drawing. It's basically the most common type of drawing, 3 different views to describe all of the complexity of the model. Sometimes you need more, sometimes you need less, but we're just going to go ahead and cover that basic standard today. We're going to look at some of the annotations and dimensions commonly used with SOLIDWORKS drawings, including some of the more popular settings used in SOLIDWORKS drawings. So you'll know how to change the way your annotations and dimensions look and update colors and all types of things. You're also going to learn how to create an assembly exploded view and a bill of materials to go along with that exploded view within a drawing. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll go ahead and close our PowerPoint here so we can get right into SOLIDWORKS. And I'm just going to hit R on my keyboard to bring up recent documents and jump right into not this woodworking device, but this woodworking device right here. All right. So if you've been joining us for the prior 3 sessions, you should have been able to build this or something like it, or at the very least downloaded the associated part files so you can have it on your own and play with it yourself. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a drawing of one of the components in this vice assembly to start off. And I think I'm going to use this hub component to do that. So I'm just going to click on the hub component and select Open Part to open the part in its own window. Here we are. And I could go ahead and select New and double-click Drawing to start a new drawing to create this part. But I'm going to eliminate a few steps and just do the Make Drawing from Part Assembly option here. So it's going to go ahead and automatically populate the view palette with that part there. Hit OK to just go with the default option. And you can see that the view palette is automatically opened with the options for that part already populated. Now, if I wanted, I could go in and select a view for any open document within SOLIDWORKS. So if I select the assembly here, you can see that it'll automatically change to acceptable views for the entire assembly. But we don't want to do that quite yet. So I'll go back to the hub. And we're going to go ahead and drag the left view to be our first view onto the sheet. And just let go to place it. Now when I do, the projected view command automatically starts, allowing me to place additional views projected from this parent view. So these would be children views of the parent view here. So I'm going to go ahead and click a few times to create 3 more views. And an isometric there to end. I'm going to go ahead and click my right mouse button to finish the projected view command. And then I'm going to hover my mouse over the dotted line on the view, click, and drag it over to the corner to kind of get it out of the way. Now, you can see that with that isometric view, I was able to break that projected relationship to the model because of the way this type of view is created. But these other 2 views, you can see they maintain that projection to the model. So no matter how I try to move it away, it's going to stay in that isometric projection of the original view I placed. The parent view, same thing with this other view. Now, if I want, I can break that by right-clicking and choosing Alignment, break alignment, and then I can move the view wherever I'd like. But in this case, I think I'll go ahead and keep it. So I'll go back into the alignment options and just select default alignment to realign it to its parent view. All right. Now, you can also change the size of your view. SOLIDWORKS automatically decided the scale for this upon creating the drawing, but I could go in and choose Use Custom Scale and make them as large or as big as I'd like. In this case, 1:1 seems to work pretty well, so we'll stick with that. I also have display style options right here. With my parent view selected, it will different selection will change all of its children views. Or if I selected an individual child view, I can change their display style individually. In fact, I like to keep these isometric guys shaded if possible, just to communicate a little bit more about that surface and show the user a little bit more detail of the part. All right, so that's pretty much a quick intro to drawing views. Now that I have the views I want placed in the model, let's go ahead and add some dimensions and annotations to them. Now, before I go in there and do that, notice that within document properties, you can change all kinds of dimensions and annotation options here for specific dimensions or top level annotations and dimensions. So let's say I wanted to make sure that my font is not too large. I could go in and make sure it's only 1/8 of an inch tall, or choose a point description if I'd like, but either way, click OK. And now when I insert my model items, this is the first option I'm going to use, it maybe won't be giant text for me. So let's go ahead and click model items to use as our first tool to bring in dimensions and annotations and attach them to a view. So we have the option to choose the entire model or just a selected feature. Let's go ahead and use selected feature first, and then I'm going to choose we'll just use the parent view here and select this feature, and you can see when I do, the annotation or the dimension was automatically imported. I can continue selecting additional features if I want to bring in additional annotations, or if I use the entire model option, it'll bring in all the dimensions related to a model that haven't already been described somewhere else or that can be part of that view. So model items will automatically import dimensions, the dimensions used to create the feature geometry of your part. So in this case, you can see that even though it does describe how the model is created and describes how a manufacturer could reproduce this part, not completely in this case, but to a degree. Typically, I find the model items option to be a little less definite or nuanced than I'd like. So I'm going to go ahead and remove these dimensions just by selecting them and hitting delete on my keyboard. And I'm going to use Smart Dimension to dimension geometry next. Now, just like in a drawing or sketching, Smart Dimension allows you to just select in a given piece of geometry and attach a dimension to it. You can see I can keep that locked in as a radius or a diameter dimension if I want, and then click OK to place it. Maybe we can just continue adding different dimensions. You can see as I click on geometry, they line up with one another within the view, helping me place them. I can go to any view I want on the fly and just add the dimensions I see fit to best communicate the object I'm trying to basically detail and describe to the manufacturer. So in this case, I'm not going to go ahead and dimension everything, but you get a good idea of how to create your own dimensions, either by using the model items tool or the Smart Dimension tool. So let's continue moving on. I'm going to show you one other kind of unique annotation here within drawings. It's the hole callout annotation. And because SOLIDWORKS automatically attaches hole callout information based on the feature you use to define the hole, you can just use this guy to completely define the hole callout in one annotation. So I'll just click it and drop it just like I did the other dimensions. And you can see that this gives me all the information about this hole quickly and easily in one annotation. So another powerful annotation here in SOLIDWORKS. Let's go ahead and look at one other annotation here before we move on, and that's the note annotation. It's pretty simple. When you attach a note to a face, you get this little dot leader here, and when you attach a note to an edge, you get this arrow leader. In this case, I think I'm just going to want to do a material call out, so I'll click once to attach it to the face, again to place a note, and then I'll just say, I think it's this cast iron. And just click outside to continue placing additional notes, or on the green check to stop. All right. So when you place an annotation, note, or dimension, they are attached to that drawing and will move anywhere with them. Even if it doesn't respond 100%, it will stay attached. Even if you have that call out way over here, it will stay attached. So same thing with all the other annotations and dimensions. They'll stay attached to the defining geometry they're attached to there. So I think this looks pretty much how I want it to. In actuality, I think maybe I would like this text to not be gray. I would like it to be black, just to kind of give me some continuity in my drawing here. And by default, Smart dimensions are added in gray to let you know that they are driven dimensions, not driving dimensions. And the difference between those is that model items are always driven by the model geometry, and they cannot be modified once they are imported into the drawing. A smart dimension can drive the model geometry a little bit. It's not actually going to change stuff necessarily, but I could go in here and change the value and make that look like anything I wanted to, despite the actual geometry that it's attached to. So that's why they are displayed in gray by default. But if I want to change that, all I need to do is go into the system level options and under colors, find the related item, and in this case it is for driven dimensions right here, and you can see that that's a gray. So if I just edit that, click OK, edit that to black or any color I'd want, you see now that my dimensions are displaying in black. So just one way to kind of change things there. You can use that color option to display many different default things, default system color options. And I'm just going to go ahead and go back and change that back to gray before I forget. And click OK. Now, you can see here we got a large cast iron text, and we've got the smaller dimension text. So let's go ahead and make a change to get things a little bit closer. So I'm going to go into document properties this time. And for dimensions, you can remember I changed that. So I'm going to go ahead and go back into font. And we're going to pop that back up to 1/4 inch. Click OK. And you can see that that change is then made and reflected automatically in the drawing. And I've got enough room to keep all these, at least the ones that I've inserted so far, in the sheet and not have them get in the way of each other. All right. You can see that when I was moving my views here, I'd highlight the edge, the dotted edge, and then click on that to move it. Well, if you try to click in the middle of a view and move it, you can see that it's going to select stuff. It's not going to necessarily move it right away. if you want to make that easier, you can always just hold Alt down, and then anywhere you click within the view, you'll be able to move it. So just a quick little tip there. And as just a reminder, SOLIDWORKS is a parametric modeling program. So now that I've created this model, if I go back and make any changes to the original model, to this hub part, let's say I change this bore size from a 1/2 inch to a little bit more, and I'm going to have to do a rebuild here to make sure that that goes through, and it does. And go back and we can see that, voila, that dimension has changed to update the change on the part. So no matter how you change your part, even after the fact, your drawing documents attached to that part will update accordingly. All right, so here's a simple 3 view. And I think you guys, if you haven't learned anything about drawings up to this point, knowing these things will help get you started dimensioning and defining all your models in SOLIDWORKS. So let's keep going. Let's go back to our assembly here. And I'm going to want to create an exploded view of this assembly to add to our drawing, or I'm going to create a new drawing actually. So exploded views can be created within the configurations manager here. And I've got a few already. I've got the default here, and I've got one showing this thing mounted on a bench top. You know, if I went in here and did perspective, you can kind of get an idea of what the in situ might look for this specific assembly that we've created. But I'm just going to go ahead and go to the previous view there and go back to default, since this is the base situation for the model that I want to start my explode from. So with the default selected or active, now I can go ahead and right click on the upper level here and choose add configuration. I'm going to call it explode and click OK. Now I like to create new configurations for my exploded views, even though I could have gone in here for the default view, right clicked it, and done new explode view within this configuration. I think it's just good practice to create your own explode view or your own configuration for your exploded views. So there we have it. Now with that configuration active, I'll go ahead and choose new exploded view. All right. And I suggest creating exploded views in SOLIDWORKS much like you would if you were actually taking the part or the assembly apart in real life. So in this case, I'm going to want to start by maybe taking my handle apart here. So since this is a subassembly, this handle, I want to ensure that select subassembly parts is checked down here, because if it isn't, and I select this ball to pull off the top, it's going to select the whole subassembly handle there for me, and not allow me to select the individual parts of the subassembly. So I'll go ahead and ensure that that is checked. I'm going to deselect and then reselect the individual component there, and you can see how it works this time. And we're just going to drag the XYZs to put the component where I'd like. You can see it automatically created one explode step, and in this case, with just one component. Once that explode step is done, I can go ahead and just click the Done button to continue adding new steps. So this time, I'm going to drag this guy in the Y direction to bring it away from the rest of the assembly. All right, click Done to complete that step. Now I'm going to take out this screw. And this time I'm going to click the right mouse button, which is the same thing as clicking Done. It just allows me to save some time without having to go back to the property manager over there. I'm going to do the same thing here for the hub. Pull it out. Right. And I can continue moving on. So those were all just individual components that you saw me move there. You can also Windows select and move multiple components. Looks like that only just selected one. Let's try different selection there. There we go. Now we got both of those, the bracket and selected the screw. Actually don't want that screw yet, so I'm going to delete that. What I was hoping to get was the obscured little retention ring back there. So I'm just going to open up my flyout menu and select it from there. I could have just rotated the model also, by the way, and selected it and pulled it out, but I think this sometimes saves you a little bit of time. So now I'm going to move these guys together. And when I let go, you can see that my explode step created includes both the components. All right. So I'll go ahead and click done, and then we'll do one more move to kind of space that ring out a little bit further. All right. So you can see how you can add and combine different explode steps to create an exploded view. Now, rather than going ahead and finishing this one, I'm just going to go ahead and cancel and then open an existing file that already has the explode completed. And here it is. All right. Once you've created an explode, you can do all kinds of fun stuff with it. If I right click, you can do an animation of the collapse. This is a good way to show potential clients how an assembly might go together, or even create a video for people to actually assemble the product on an assembly line or within a store or something. So they can be kind of powerful in their own right. I'll go ahead and close that. And we'll just leave this exploded view basically unactive for now. I'm going to go ahead and rotate the model just a little bit. Actually, I will double click it. I'm going to rotate the model just a little bit. As long as any of the components aren't covering in one another, I think I'm okay. All right. All right. And I think I got it to a point I like. I'm just going to go ahead and hit rebuild just to make sure everything's good to go. All right. So let's go ahead and create another drawing, this time of this exploded assembly. So this time I'll just go ahead and do new and double click drawing, and then choose the ANSI landscape option. Go right into the view palette and pick the explode option for my reference component. All right, so you can see here that we have lots of different options, including an isometric exploded view. Now, the isometric exploded view is great, but in this case, I don't want it in an isometric orientation. I want it in that orientation that I left it in, the current orientation. So I actually am just going to drag on this current view. You can see it's pretty small. We won't want to use that. Let's go ahead and try to make it bigger. I'm going to go ahead and choose Use Custom Scale. And I think a 1:5 might give us a pretty good result. And there we are. All right. You can see that even though the explode isn't showing, up here in the reference configuration option, I can choose the exploded configuration. And because an exploded view lives within that configuration, I also get the show an exploded or model break state option. If I were to go to the default option, you can see that that just doesn't exist. Go back to exploded, and when I check the option, boom, there we are. Now we're seeing the model in an exploded view. All right, so this looks pretty good, but I'm going to want to bring in a bill of materials as well, and I think that this title block down here is not going to give me enough room to bring in the bill of materials and display everything how I want to. So I'm going to get rid of it. To do that, all you need to do is right click on the title block or on the empty sheet, not in a view, and choose Edit Sheet Format. Now, all the title block information is just like sketch information. with lines and text making up all the information here. So I'm going to go ahead and just window select all that, and then hit delete on my keyboard to remove it. Then I'll just go ahead and click in the confirmation corner to exit the sheet edit, and you can see that all the information has been removed. Pretty nifty, right? All right. So if I want to go ahead and add a BOM, a bill of materials here, to detail all the stuff that's in this assembly, it's pretty easy. SOLIDWORKS already knows the components' names, so I'm just going to go ahead and do Insert, Tables, Bill of Materials. All I need to do is select a view to base the materials on, the bill of materials on, and we get a lot of options here. So I can do top level only, indented. I can choose different configurations. Lots of different options here. We got configuration of the same part as separate items. I definitely don't want to do that, so we'll go ahead and choose that guy. I think I'll leave everything else as default for now and click OK. And then you can see here I've got a table that could snap to my drawing frame and I can place as desired. I'll go ahead and do that. Just place it, and then you can actually manipulate the box or the table just like you would many other things like in a Word document or anything else. So there we go. That fits a little bit better. All right. With this selected, and you can see that I have lots of different options over here for the associated table. All right. So now I have actually inserted the table. Maybe I want to make a little bit more room because you can kind of see that everything is bunched up here. So I'm going to go ahead and go over here to the sheet 1 listing, which is the drawing sheet that I have so far. I'm going to right click it, and I'm going to choose properties. And when I do, I get the option to apply a new sheet format. I used A landscape before. We'll try B and apply changes. You can see when I do, I get much more room. And I can go ahead and just drag my information and drawing view out accordingly. All right. So the next thing I want to do is attach balloons to this drawing view to call out all the different item numbers. So again, easy to do by using the auto balloon command. So if I select auto balloon, it prompts me for a drawing. And once I do, I go ahead and just select it, and all the balloons will automatically attach to the different components based on the item numbers in the bill of materials. I'll go ahead and click OK, and you can tell that I can use these magnetic lines then to manipulate and organize these balloons. I can even change their order on the magnetic line so the lines don't interfere with one another, and make them longer or shorter depending on my needs. I can even drag existing balloons onto a magnet line or off of one to add them or remove them. So I can continue manipulating these annotations, or callouts rather, to look nice and presentable. I can select a leader and drag on the leader end to change it from an edge or a face. I can select a leader and then hold down Control plus drag an end to bring multiple leaders out, like so. And reorder them much as anything else. And I'll go ahead and go to an existing document to show you what that looks like. You can see here that I've already done the same thing, cleaned up everything, and I've got a nice display of all the different callouts here, referencing each item number and the bill of materials. So I think that's going to about cover it. Hopefully you guys have learned a lot about drawings here in a short amount of time, especially if you've never worked with drawings before. You've seen how to create a basic 3 view of a single component, add 2 types of model information, driven and driving dimensions, and you've learned how to create different annotations and notes and change drawing settings. So you hopefully have learned a lot to get going and create your own drawings in SOLIDWORKS. Hopefully good enough to accurately describe your parts to whomever you'd like to. So thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you guys soon.